Hello. Hi. I've made it. Welcome to the new shit. Welcome to the new space. Puck is here. There does seem to still be like a little bit of echo in this room, but I'm working on it. Let me know how the audio is. If it's good, if there's too much, if there's too little. So we'll have to test out this new little bit of area. Uh, but yeah, like be a quick little tour. Right, not bad. We got space for Puck, so hopefully we'll get more puckage going on with any luck. You can see the closet behind me. This room is quite large. Go on the bed, buddy. There you go. There you go. But yeah, welcome. The audio is a bit heavy. It's muffled a little bit. All right. See if I can make a minor adjustment with that. How's that? A little bit better? Chesh for scale, yeah. I am very small. As you can see, the room is quite large. Hopefully I won't have to talk as loud anymore as I was before, with any luck. But yeah, we got a couple of things to cover today. But yeah, welcome to the new space. I'm excited to be here. I hope you guys are excited to be here. We're going to talk a little bit about some atheism stuff, because I saw some interesting questions being asked on Twitter a while ago. And we'll take a look at some of those. But before we get into that, turns out Nate, the lawyer, the one who basically started Dumbfuck Friday, has filed his lawsuit against Christopher Boozy. For anybody who doesn't know who Christopher Boozy is the dumbass who does Bot Sentinel, the one that was hired by Amber Heard's team to try and fudge some numbers to make it look like there was some kind of online harassment campaign set up by Johnny Depp during the Depp Heard trial. And before it, I guess, actually, was when he was hired. But anyway, he's not sharing the filing as of right now, as far as I know. However, Emily D. Baker is sharing the filing, and I think she's live right now. So if you're curious about that, you can go and check that out. I also want to shout out, I just got off of watching the premiere over on Neat Creat's channel. So if you're interested in League of Legends and Riot Games and sort of what they're doing and what they're up to, with a bunch of cameos from people like that, definitely go and check that out, because it was brilliant and I absolutely love it. So shout out to that. Also wanted to shout out Mikey Famine, for any of you who remember Mikey. I mean, he hasn't really been around on this end of the internet, but he's been working hard on the Bin podcast, and I definitely recommend going and giving them a shot. If you're interested, they are on YouTube. They're just called The Bin Podcast, so like BIN. So feel free to go check them out. And I will on Sunday be live over with Free Thought Profit. So if you're interested in checking that out, I'll be over there on Sunday with them. There also has been a potential update with, I guess Steve's been deleting videos, apparently. I don't know. So if there's any videos that you wanted to see, it may or may not be missing. So if you're looking for something that may or may not have me on it, because I haven't actually looked to see what's going on yet, I mostly don't care. It would be sad to lose the Caffeine Corner videos if those ones are going. I'm not sure, but maybe we'll find out later. And at the end of the day, does it really matter? If you care, now you know. Last little piece. I know I said last time I wasn't going to be talking about the quartering anymore, but I did leave a caveat to say, well, if he did anything extra stupid, I might talk about it. And, well, there's this. This is a thing that I saw today. Alucard, who's been a friend of the channel for quite some time, tweeted out, well, this is a thing, and it's a screenshot of somebody saying, you unironically leap to defend Hitler. You have no right to be yikesing anybody, turd. And the quartering responded, he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. What the fuck have you ever done? Yeah, why doesn't everybody just be more like Hitler? Why is everybody so unmotivated? What? Oh, I will also be on Kent with Ben later tonight if I am correct. If I remember correctly. I think that'll be tonight. So you can find me over on Dapper Diner's channel tonight. And then maybe not too long after that, I believe we have some reading to do, and I'm excited for that. But yeah, I've also noticed that the trending tab for me shows hashtag D&D character and hashtag Amber Heard is a monster. I don't know. But let's take a look at Beat the Cult over here. So here's our actual topic for today that I wanted to talk about. And I should probably get live chat showing, shouldn't I? Because as of right now, it's not showing. Nope, nope, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop. Let's make sure it's going to go to the right spot. Yeah, there we go. You guys should now be active. Kent with Ben, Kent with Ben. And you guys can't see Kent with Ben because it's on the wrong side. And I'll move it over here. There you go. Let's do this. There we go. It's because the thing is bigger this time. Okay, so let's look into it. First off, I would like to point out her. This is hilarious. I am a big fan of her banner, which says your profile says you're a lesbian, which confuses me. Yes, you may appear as a female on the outside, but your soul tells a different picture. It's 100% male. What? Do souls? Are we gendering souls? I'm out of the loop. Nobody sent me that memo. But hey, you know. Whatever. What do I know, right? So, Skeptic Nikki here, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Beat the Cult, where we fight harmful religious thinking. So just so you're aware, I did go to this YouTube channel. This is a different YouTube channel that she linked. I don't know if that was on purpose or by accident, but this is something completely different. So, I don't know about that, but whatever. Hello, atheists and friends. I just dropped a new video. Do you know real Christians don't support abortion? ? Hypocrisy is real. Y'all check it out here. So she's making quite a bit of a splash because I'd never heard of this person before in the last couple of I don't know. I don't feel like I don't know this. I've never seen this person around any of the atheist communities. Not that I'm saying that they shouldn't be. I've never seen them. So I think it's interesting that they've popped up and they've asked some of the standard questions like, "Oh, I'm still trying to find out why people think atheism is a religion." So to look at some of these questions and actually answer some of them, let's start there. The reason why people think atheism is a religion is basically three-pronged, in my opinion, if I'm going to cut down on the reasoning. Because realistically, anybody could think that for any reason, and it could be valid or not. But some of the more prevalent ones that I think I've found over the years has been a misunderstanding about what an actual religion is, a false equivalence fallacy, where they're trying to equate what their religion does and their belief system with someone else to either invalidate or feel more valid themselves in their religion, or to try and point out the dogma of a lot of religious organizations and religious online groups, because at the end of the day, the online groups that have existed around atheism have become very dogmatic and have worked to be more dogmatic on purpose in some cases, to whether it be from a political standpoint or whether it be from like an activism type standpoint, or even like definitionally. You'll see that there are people who, if you don't agree with our usages of a particular term, you don't belong in our group, and things being very cliquey. I mean, Faithless Form is a good example of that. So having like a get together, having like a sort of things that are required to be adhered to type situation, you end up kind of seeing parallels there. Atheists don't workshop anything and don't have central beliefs. Atheists can't even agree on what atheism is. It's weird. Uh, I mean, yes and no. So when it comes to whether or not, let's work this one backwards, right? So you've got atheists can't agree on what atheism is. It's weird. Yeah, that tends to be because there's not a whole lot of education in philosophy, and the reason there's not a whole lot of education in philosophy is because there's been a stigmatization or like a line drawn between what counts as science and what is philosophy, and the two have been kind of going separate directions. Um, Unfortunately, because they really shouldn't. They belong together. But the terminology that is used in the fields of philosophy are not being brought over into like common language. So when you have something along the lines of, you see people arguing back in the day about evolution, and even now, people will say, well, evolution is just a theory. And it's like, okay, but the term theory is being used in two different ways. Science is using the term theory this way, and you're using a layman or a colloquial version of the word theory to mean like a guess, right? So when you see atheists arguing about what atheism is, you see people who don't understand that they're talking about philosophy and that talking about beliefs and religion and theology, or the lack of those things, is a conversation about philosophy, a conversation about ethics potentially, a conversation about like just systems of belief, and like epistemology, which is philosophy. And then you have people that are used to sort of rhetoric designed to grant the atheist a debate styled edge, right? If you say, well, I just lack a belief in God, you tell me why I should. You've set up the conversation in a way, you're really just shutting down the conversation. You're not actually engaging in the conversation. So does that mean that terminology doesn't have a place? No, of course it does. Using the lack of belief definition is perfectly fine, and it's perfectly acceptable, particularly in certain circumstances when you're like having a conversation with your family, when you're trying to explain to somebody, or you're trying to have that kind of a conversation with a friend. But from a standpoint of philosophical discussion and sort of more in-depth debate, it's not going to do you any good. It's not a very good definition. It's not a very effective definition, because it doesn't tell you what something is. It tells you what you're not. And so if I ask you, hey, what do you believe? And you say, well, I don't believe this. I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't my question. I asked what you do believe, right? So it's like atheists don't workshop anything. And we know that's not true, because we know that there are atheist groups online that try and make political change. And to make political change, you have to have conversations. You have to have a direction. You have to have an approach and a plan and a strategy about how you're going to get from point A to point B. So to say that atheists don't workshop anything, I don't think that's accurate, although this person might be, Beat the Cult might be talking about something different. And don't have central beliefs. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what she's trying to get at, but that sounds like complete nonsense to me. You can't go through life without having beliefs of some sort, and what you classify as central, without clarifying what that is kind of just a meaningless statement. Saying that like atheists don't have a central belief seems to me to indicate that she's trying to say atheists don't have one thing that they all agree to believe in, except they do because they're atheists. You believe that there is no God. It's not that complicated. Now, do you have to play on the same playing field as the theist in that case? You're on a level playing field when it comes to the discussion about what you know, because now you're talking about claims of knowledge versus claims of beliefs. Then maybe you lose a little bit of footing from a rhetorical standpoint, but you get to be a little bit more honest. And I mean, I will talk about my conversation with David Smalley, where he full on admitted, like, this was a guy who touts himself as a radio host who wants theists to call in and have a conversation with them as like an honest interlocutor to, meet and greet and be like, let's talk, we're cool, it's fine, let's be friends. And then admitted live that he purposefully used different definitions so that he didn't have to play on the same playing field. So he was being unfair and dishonest on purpose to give him and his show a different edge. And here's the thing. It's fine to take that approach, but if you're going to lie and bullshit about it, people are going to be right to call you an asshole. Morality emerged from the evolution of human social interaction no God needed. Please retweet. There are so many who claim atheists can't be moral without God belief. So, this is a conversation that I kind of wish happened a little bit more often among atheist communities and atheist groups. Like, instead of talking about some of the stuff that I see them talking about and bickering and arguing amongst each other about stupid definition usages, I would love to see a little bit more conversation about moral ethics. Moral ethics. But like the ethics that come along with like what are morals and like what is good and what is bad and what is, because these are complicated conversations. Like but you also have to have some understanding again of philosophy to talk about, hey, well, what are morals? What do they represent? What do they mean? Did we just make them up, or are they inherent in some way, shape, or form? However, talking about the evolution of social evolution, so rather than biological evolution, we're talking about how society evolves over time, is a fantastic conversation that I would also super duper love to see more on. But I would agree with that. I would think that a lot of our morals come from what works for a social species. Humans are social species. If you can't be social, you're going to have a hard time. We also don't do very well as individuals in the wild. A lot of Christians are telling me that morality comes from Christianity. Quick question. If morals come from Christianity, how are people moral before Christianity? I think most Christians would say that they weren't, or they would be following the God of Abraham at the time, and that would be what the Moses law would be for, like the 10 Commandments. So up until that point. So, I mean, I think that would be the answer if there's any Christians in the chat that would like to correct me. But I think that would be a perfectly acceptable answer to this question, right? And so, I don't know, I think some of these questions are sort of just kind of thrown out there. But I don't think this makes Christianity look bad. Christianity came forth through previous religious dogma. So those previous rules would still be applicable in that case. So they would easily be, like, this seems like a very easy answer to me. Like, anybody who knows anything about like New Testament versus Old Testament would have like, yeah, of course. So this seems like an easy answer. Atheists and Christians ask why I said atheists are more moral than Christians. Most Christians say God and the Bible are their moral base. The Bible's God is cruel, and many Bible rules are homophobic, sexist, and racist, yet Christians themselves claim to follow them. If one believes the God of the Bible is the foundation of morality, I would challenge their own morality. But what's going to happen is that I'm going to get a lot of special pleading, ad hoc, and cherry-picking comments, and comments challenging my morality as an atheist. I mean, if you're gonna make the statement that like a broad statement like atheists are more moral than Christians, of course people are going to question your moral and challenge your morality as an atheist. Presenting that as a bad thing is, I mean, you're kind of that's the that's the conversation you started. So it makes sense to go to say, okay, well, what makes you as an atheist moral, right? What makes you think that atheists are more moral than Christians? But now you have to have those conversations about ethics and morals. And you have to have that conversation and explain, well, where do you get your morals from? If you don't get them from God, where do your morals come from? And if you ask that kind of a question and you're not prepared to give that answer, or you haven't considered that, then you shouldn't be asking that question or making that kind of bold of a statement, because you don't know that. If you don't know where your morals come from or what they are or what they're in line with or how they came about, and you can't answer any of these things, then you're in no position to be asking or making such a statement as atheists are more moral than Christians, because there's absolutely nothing, zero, nothing, I'll be clear, nothing in atheism that means that you are not homophobic. That means that you're not racist. That means that you're not sexist. I have met plenty of sexist assholes who are atheists. There's nothing in atheism that says anything about whether or not you are or are not. It's not morals related. Period. Simple as that. I think a conversation needs to be had about the God of the Bible and the Bible itself, and if these are really good examples of morality. And yes, atheists can have this conversation too. Yeah, I don't think there's anything about the Bible is a pretty public book. I don't think there's anything about being an atheist or not an atheist that means that you can't analyze the Bible. I'm pretty sure most people would say, hey, I think a lot of Christians would say, hey, read the Bible with an open heart and with an open mind. And so being analytical about what you're reading, being analytical about what you're listening to, being analytical about what you kind of who you're interacting with and in what way you're interacting with them and how they're interacting with other people. I'm all for it. Atheists are more moral than Christians. Prove it. Show don't tell. If you can't show it, you don't know it. I do love that. I do enjoy that one. That is a good one. Props to R and Raw. That is a great slogan. I was never allowed to trick or treat because of my evangelical Christian parents thought Halloween was Satan's holiday. Yeah, same. I missed out on a lot of trick or treating because I had a crazy stepdad who was like fine with Halloween and then wasn't fine with Halloween and then was fine with Halloween. So I missed out on a lot of trick or treating when I was a kid. How have you learned to accept yourself? Very interested to see different answers. Do you mind retweeting? I think that's a question for another day, since we're talking about atheism and God told me he loved me, therefore I was accepted. I don't know. I'll ask this again since I didn't get a response last time. As an atheist, what is the foundation of your morals? Good question. If you're somebody who has opened the door to have this conversation, asking someone where their morals comes from is a totally acceptable question. As I've said before, I'm a social mammal who wants a safe, peaceful environment for myself and those I love and others. Why? Well, how fun is it when you're scared for your life and belongings? Atheists can be good people without believing in gods. Everyone can. I mean, that kind of explains, like, that kind of answers the question. The question is, what's the foundation of your morals? So if I'm understanding, like, I'm interpreting a little bit here. So forgive my speculation and please feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think what she's trying to say, because I mean, Twitter is limited, right? So we're taking that with a grain of salt. Like, you can only say so much on Twitter. Is that the foundation of her morals is based on social evolution. it's beneficial and good for society, and if it's beneficial and good for society, then it is morally good. Or whatever is the I mean, this harkens into some of like what Sam Harris has talked about. If it is as best as it can be for the most number, then we can view it as good. So if you use his kind of spectrum of good to evil, evil being things that have a negative effect on the most number of people possible versus the most positive effect on the most number of people possible, those are the sides that you would call good and evil, then it seems to me that she's saying that my morals come from trial and error over hundreds of thousands of years between other humans. And that she bases it off of that. We've tried these things in the past, they didn't work, they were really bad for people, so we don't do them. Let's keep going. You're more dumb than dumb people. You can't say something like that and use the wrong then. Oh no, that's the right then. Is it the right then? Oh, hi, Puck. You better not start barking. I'm watching you. Oh, you thinking about it? Oh, I know. Enough. Yawn. I know. Stop. Hey, I'm gonna kick you off the bed. I'll kick you off the bed. I'll do it. Look at this sucky face. Enough. You're fine. There's always got to be a don't do it. No. Hey. I said no. Get down. All right, I'm kicking you off the bed. Get down. Weenie. Oh, it is the correct then. Yeah. You're more dumb than dumb people. I've met some decent Christians in my comments, but Christians like you make them look bad, and it's not fair. Why? Because somebody said you're dumb? Like, that is pretty mild. If you're going to claim to represent God's perfect love, I don't know if calling people names is the way to do that. Well, they didn't call you a name, they made an assessment. A name would be like... Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm not going into it. But I'm just an immoral atheist. What do I know? Calling some... If this is the worst you're getting, is somebody saying that you're more dumb than some dumb people? Like, I feel like this is pretty mild. I feel like you could pick something better. But maybe that's just me. Keep telling yourself that Jesus will be the final judge. Is that a threat? Kind of, I guess. In the same way that a good portion of the end of the day for Christianity is I guess a threat if you don't believe. So I wouldn't call it a threat in the sense that they're going to send you to that judgment of any way, but is self-love a pseudoscientific concept? This is an actually question. The term self-love reminds of something that would be in The Secret or touted by Deepak Chopra. I remember people buying rose quartz crystals to increase self-love, so it's always sounded odd to me. Do you mean like JO crystals? Like, I think JO crystals would be like That would be pseudoscience, but like taking care of yourself and caring about yourself, I don't think is a pseudoscience concept or pseudoscientific concept. So, I mean, it kind of just depends on what you're talking about. Yeah, Ohio. Would you ever work somewhere that made you implant a tracking device? Workplace making you implant something? I don't know what this means. Like, there are places that they have a tracking device in your car or your truck for safety reasons and stuff like that. So I need more information to answer that question. Abortion ends in one dead child or more. Sure. And the Abraham story ends with a dead lamb. What's worse? I thought all life was sacred. If you care so much, take care of the women seeking abortions, pay for their appointments, cribs, formula, diapers, etc. Since you want so badly to control these women's body, put your money where your mouth is. I think that's fair. The question who created the universe is question begging. You first have to demonstrate this universe is the type of universe that requires a thinking agent. And sure. Yeah, I guess. And since no other universe has been observed to compare, this is also an argument from ignorance as well. So it could grow into an argument from ignorance, sure, right? Who created the universe? I would go a step further than this. I would go a step further and say, besides who created the universe, you have to demonstrate that the universe was created, and then start talking about who. Like the universe needs to have a start, and these are questions we just don't have an answer to. And so for like, again, this is like a lot of atheist rhetoric to me. It's not like atheists have any special knowledge, right? There's no like, oh, atheists know where the universe came from. Like, that's not the case. But if you're going to have the conversation about where did the universe come from, and one person says God made it, and another person says it always existed, and another person says I don't know, the I don't knows have it. So so I mean, you can have like a belief about what you think. You believe God didn't create the universe, correct? That would be an atheistic belief. You could also say that the universe was created, but not by a god. There's like so many ways that you could break this down that I don't find this as like, I don't even necessarily find this that interesting of a question. Not to ask person B on the street. Although if you're doing like street epistemology, then yeah, that would be a fair and interesting kind of line of thinking to go down. But you're not really going to get that interesting of an answer if you go and ask a Christian and say, well, where did the universe come from? They're going to say God made it. And they're going to say, well, how do you know that? And they're going to say, the Bible told me so. And you're going to say, well, do you have any other evidence besides that? And they're going to say, why would I need any? I don't need any other evidence than that. So I just don't think it's a very interesting line of questioning you would go down, because if they can easily just turn it around and say, well, where do you think the universe came from? And you say, I don't know. And they're like, okay, great. Wow, what an interesting conversation we've had there, guys. I did it. All by myself. I just like they're just more. If you go down the route of saying, well, why do you think the Bible is a good source of information? I think there are better questions you can choose from than the universe one. like to start the conversation, because you're just kind of starting the conversation with like the intention of going in this direction, and I think you could kind of skip the formalities and just say, "Hey, do you believe in the Bible? Do you believe the Bible as a scientific source, or do you believe in the Bible as a literary device, or do you believe in the Bible as um literally, right? Or how do you choose in the Bible which things you take literally and which things you take figuratively?" And like, there's some interesting conversation you can have with that, because there are certainly things that are, I think, at least they come across to me as obviously allegory, right? And I don't think there's anything that's necessarily wrong with that. Lots of stories have allegories in them, right? So kind of assessing why someone thinks the way they do or what they think about it is a more open-ended way of having the conversation, and a more honest way of having the conversation, in my opinion. Oh, since we're talking about it, according to your bio, you like killing slash aborting humans. Ergo, no morally superior to theists who think murder is objectively wrong. You can't say there is nothing objective and then say you are morally superior in the other sentence. Since we're talking about bias, you admit to being homophobic, transphobic, hateful bigot. You also call abortion murder and use the pejorative. Also, theists don't think murder is objectively wrong. Almost all worship a god who murders at will. You're kinda awful. And see, this is what we have here, is a conversation that has gone off the rails. But I mean, welcome to Twitter, right? This is why you have run into trouble when you say something as broad as atheists are better or more moral than Christians. Christians have a different moral set in a lot of cases. And so, because there isn't a moral set that you have to follow to be atheist, at least Christians have like sort of a line of demarcation, like a line of like what should be consistent. Now, individuals are individuals and they're never going to be consistent, but you have different sects of Christianity because of that. But there is like a book you can go to and say, boom, these are the rules. Boom, this is what we follow. Boom, this is this and this. And you can have like discussions about that, and you can have debate about that amongst Christians. But if they believe that abortion is murder, and you as an atheist say that abortion is fine, you're going to have a hard time convincing that person that you're morally superior to them. And realistically, what would make you morally superior in the first place? You're not using the same measuring stick. You're not using the same like measuring tools at all when you're measuring your morality as opposed to somebody else's. And is that a thing that we should be doing? Should we be judging each other's morals based on what we believe they intend, based on a conversation on Twitter, based on how they've lived their life, based on how we know individuals that we actually know in our real life? I have a really hard time like going like, you guys know me to a degree. Anybody watching this video knows me to a degree. They know what I'm presenting at the very least. But they don't know me when the camera goes off. You don't know anything about the way I live my life. You don't know anything about what I do. You might know what I've said I do, but if you've never met me in person and you haven't hung around with me for more than 20 minutes, do you actually know that much about me? I talked about Matt Dillahunty in other videos, and I don't intend on judging Matt as a person, like who he is in his real life, because I don't know him. I don't know him in his real life. I don't know anything about the guy. I never had like a conversation with him. Whatever. But I can judge the way he presents himself and what he's saying here. So I can say, well, he's an asshole online, but that doesn't make him an asshole in his real life. He could be totally pleasant and wonderful and lots of fun. Right? So there's like lines of how well and how much you might be able to judge somebody, but there are people that you know in your real life, and this has happened to people where somebody in the real life that they've been really good friends with in their workspace turns out that they're like a crazy murderer. You had no idea because you don't know them. You only know what they present. And that's part of the struggle. If you're going to try to judge people, you're going to have a bad time. Right? You're not going to succeed. You're just sowing discourse. Now, does that mean that people who say and do transphobic, bigoted shit shouldn't get called out for it? No, of course they should. You should absolutely call them out for that garbage. That's garbage. Don't be like that. That's shitty and awful, and don't, maybe. You want to start talking about objectives, you have like what is objectively moral, you're going to have to actually understand what that means in the first place. There are people who believe that slavery is fine and is okay, or sex trafficking is a part of economics, right? And think that there isn't a moral quandary about it, right? And so you have to find these lines about, okay, if we're going to say that something is objectively right or wrong, or if you want to say that in almost all cases, this is this is the most optimal option, or this is what we want to have the law be, because these are all entirely different kind of conversations. But if you remember earlier, I said, hey, man, I really wish we had these conversations about difficult moral and ethics. These are difficult questions. This is not obvious, right? But people talk as if it is, right? People are very, very quick to just brush people aside, or very, very quick to look for whatever they can to be like, oh, well, I don't have to listen to you, or I don't know, blah, 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 you're just a bad person. And it's like, yeah, they might be. They might be. You might think that their behavior is unacceptable, but that doesn't really address if you're going to have like a full-on conversation about morality and ethics. And again, we have run into this problem where you've opened the door by saying that atheists are just more moral than Christians. And like, good luck. Like, why would you prove it? Right? Like, oh, look, see? Yeah, atheists are more moral than Christians. I lack a belief that atheists are more moral than Christians. Why should prove it to me? Show me your evidence. If your evidence is the Bible, oh, this is starting to sound really familiar, isn't it? Huh. Or are we proposing that we judge people based on an old book and not by current standards or their current actions? Weird. Oh, yeah. Citation needed. I have that. Because I'm special. At least I like to think I'm special. Some of my best tweets spur disagreement between atheists, and this is one of them. This is great. We become closer through disagreement. Keep the combos flowing, y'all. I don't. Do we want to click on this? Let's click on this. Let's see where some of this goes. Please retweet if you agree. So you're already setting up a bias in your comments, but okay. Not very scientific. Atheists being more moral than Christians is the null hypothesis. I love you guys. Some of my best tweets. Oh yeah. Sorry, I can't agree on this one. I have these nice older couples living beside me, very Christian, regular goers, truly some of the nicest, most charitable people I've ever met in my life. I wouldn't stereotype if I were you. There's good and there's bad in every category. This is fair. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the ones who will only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Matt 7:21. There may be more truth in your statement than you can imagine. Christians who behave as Christians and Christians who don't. Right? You're Joel Osteen, for example. What he presents with his mega church and what he represents is something more akin to the Pharisees, in my humble opinion. While I try to be a good person, I don't do it believing that I will be rewarded with eternal life. Otters are more moral than humans. Those rapey, violent little fuckers. Fair. Non-religious and religious participants had similar levels of empathy and showed similar patterns of moral reaction to different moral violations involving both disgust and non-disgusting content. Your hypothesis, given this background data, has low prior probability as consequence, whereas the hypothesis neither are more moral better explains this and has a higher probability. That's what I'm talking about. It's almost like we've done studies on these kinds of things. It's almost like Christians not overwhelmingly being more moral in totality is a good enough argument on its own, and you don't need to make hyperbolic statements like this to push whatever rhetoric you're trying to push. In fact, I would probably argue that this is maybe, you know what, maybe there are some good comments and good discussion that came from this. I mean, I'm doing a thing talking about it, but there's so many interesting things when it comes to talking about like ethics and morals, and we're just not having those conversations because we can't get to those conversations because people are too busy being rhetorical and just painting with broad brushes. How about we're all people and we need to learn how to live together and have these kinds of conversations about what's going to make society better? Great, cool, thanks. Look at me being the nice guy here. No, fight. Are you not entertained? More moral, no such thing if humans don't have objective value. I've never understood or liked this argument. Well, I don't know if I'm already concerned by the first statement. If you don't understand it, then you don't really know if you like it or not, right? Because you're gonna judge something that you don't understand. Anyway, even though nature is indifferent towards us, humans do have value to each other. Believing in an arbitrary God doesn't change this. Please stop claiming atheists are immoral because we don't believe in a God. I mean, that's not what this person said, but let's look at the context and see if there was more to it. There wasn't. This person didn't say anything about God belief being the problem here. They said that there's no such thing as being more moral for anybody if humans don't have an objective value. Now, I don't know if I would agree with that because I don't really think I don't think that kind of thing is objective. I think pretty much all of that type of thing is subjective. One person may or may not have more or less value to you in particular, and there might be somebody out there that you wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire. Because humans be like that. We are kind of petty, vindictive assholes a lot of the time. Hey Christians, please stop indoctrinating children. Hey atheists, please stop making broad, general statements about an entire group just to incite hatred against them. And stop using words you don't know what they mean. Most Christian groups are not indoctrinating children. Some Christian groups are indoctrinating children. Some religious groups are indoctrinating children. Scientology comes to mind, and it's not just children. Mormonism comes to mind. Not very many people spend a whole lot of time talking about the Amish. That could be an interesting conversation, perhaps. There are some Christian groups and churches that do indoctrinate children, and some of them that just have Sunday school that have some questionable stories and questionable systems. You should, I think, encouraging people to be aware of what their kids are being taught in Sunday school might be a good idea, because I think a lot of individuals just assume the church is safe because it's a church. And that is definitely not the case. Helios, who's been a member for 30 months, thank you so much. Okay, everyone, you heard the Gobbo girl. Get your pitchforks ready and torches lit. Time to debate me, bro, the world. Glory to the Goblin Queen. Debate me, bro. I just don't find this type of rhetoric helpful. Like, it's not 2012 anymore. Like, if you want to have the conversation about whether or not religion is good or whether a particular religious sect is good or bad, you're going to have a lot more of an interesting conversation than just, hey, Christians, please, when did you stop beating your wife? In all seriousness, when will the Christian versus atheism stop? I'm getting bored seeing stuff like this. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot of these kinds of questions are things we've all kind of been through and gotten over. I mean, I'm sure there's new people coming in, and there's new people that are going around, right? And so it it makes sense that these topics come up, right? But I think that I think it's run itself a little bit dry, and I think there are more in-depth and interesting conversations that could be had. Right? I think I would love to. I'm gonna go looking now. I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna see if I can find somebody who's talking about like the Amish and talking about like whether or not that is a problematic way to bring up children, right? And then just they get, what is it? They hit a certain age, and then they're just kind of allowed to go into the world completely unaware and unprepared. And so, like, is that traumatic? Maybe in some cases. Right? So there's definitely interesting things that that can be had. Now, is it valuable to say, hey, religions shouldn't indoctrinate children, and here's what we need to be aware of, and here's what parents of children who are religious should be concerned about or don't need to be concerned about, right? Because a lot of these Christian groups may or may not even be aware of what could or could not be happening to their kids. Nikki, who's been a member for 23 months, thank you very much, says, yeah, yeah, lol, yeah, yep. It's now, hey, Christians, when did you stop body slamming your wife? How is taking your kid to church? This is an interesting question. How is taking your kid to church not indoctrination? It depends on the way the children are treated, right? If you watch a puppet show telling a story, like you bring a kid to a church, they go to Sunday school, there's a puppet telling a story, and the kids get a cookie while they're watching the story. Are they being indoctrinated, or are they being told a story? Is Veggie Tales indoctrination? How focused is that church on the or else? Right? Indoctrination is more than just you're telling your kid that God is real. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I definitely recommend checking out my conversation with Chris. we were talking about Scientology and cults, and we did go into indoctrination a little bit. So I definitely recommend going and checking that video out if you're interested in a little bit more about that. Do 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 do. Lots of football. Went to a Catholic school. I understand this tweet more than you know. What was the tweet? Yeah, Catholic schools, depending on when and where you look, Catholic schools can be really yikes. There is also like a really big difference. So I'm from Canada, and so we have Catholic schools in Canada, and and they get funding privately and publicly. They do have requirements, though. They're not just allowed to teach whatever they want. There are specific rules that they have to follow, and they still have to follow the rules that are set by the boards of education, right? So the indoctrination side of what the Catholic school used to be and might be in America up here is not nearly as problematic. There is still lots of questions and problematic things about Catholic schools, like when it comes to sex education, which have, waned and waxed over the years about how effective and how strict they are about it. And that also depends on where you go in Canada, because this is a provincial thing. So it really just kind of depends on where and when you look. The Catholic Church now is no longer the force that it used to be. And part of that does absolutely have to do with the atheists of yore going through and debunking and starting to take them down a notch, and even the Christians who took the Catholics down a couple notches during those great separations. So to pretend that Catholic school is now what it used to be, I think is a disservice to the amount of work that Christians and atheists have both put into making the Catholic Church making the Catholic schools far better than they used to be. Now, are they perfect? No. Do they still need work? Of course they do. But a Catholic school is not inherent, at least not in Canada, at least. Maybe it's different in America. I don't know. You'd have to give me the updates on that. And I also don't know, like Catholic school in 2022, I'm sure is very different than Catholic school in 1984. Hey, atheists, we'll keep the light on for you. What does this mean? This seems vaguely threatening. It means that they have hope for you. That's what that means. It's a old idiom. It's not a threat. Why do atheists think that Christians are threatening them all the time? Is that a historical thing? Is that like historical indoctrination that the religious groups will go around and kill them at every opportunity, and so they're just like innately fearful for their lives? What's weird in the U.S. What's weird in the U.S. There is no separation between government and church. Public officials still swear on the Bible. Agreed, the Bible should have nothing to do with the American government. So the American government does. I'm not listen. This is bullshit. The American government does have separation between church and state. However, there has been plenty of backstepping in America in the last good number of years from politicals. You don't have to swear on the Bible. If you had to swear on the Bible, that would be a lack of separation of church and state. Having the choice to swear on a Bible in court or into political office would be an example of it not having separation of church and state. But it absolutely does. And if you act like it doesn't, you're not going to be able to protect the separation that exists. So at least don't be bullshitting. At least get your shit straight. Because if you're going to say that, well, it feels like America has a serious lack of separation between church and state because the majority of officials are Christians, then you can address that and why that might be the case, and you can kind of work your way into figuring out how you can start to fix that kind of problem. But if you're just like, oh, there is no separation of church and state, then what are you fighting for? You're going to fight for a church and state that already exists? Or are you saying, hey, the church and state needs to be separated more? and then go, okay, well, then we acknowledge that it exists and it's not good enough and we need to make it more. Therefore, da 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 da. Simba. Uh, yeah, I do not envy atheists that are in the American Bible Belt. Um, I'm in Canada. I feel quite safe and perfectly content. Um, and I'm in Southern Ontario, and I'm sure there are more or less places that you'll feel more or less content in as an atheist, and same with being a Christian, and same with believe it or not, there's America, and then there's not America. And not America is actually made up of a bunch of different things and different places and people with different religions and different ideas and different ways of approaching those religions. Or lack thereof. Da, 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 da. Trying to skip over their football stuff. As a Canadian, I could care less about football. This isn't hockey. What is this not hockey sport you speak of? Here we go. Atheists in America are brave. Question, question, question. Not at all. In many countries, it's against the law to be atheists. Atheists there have to be brave. Yeah, well, that can still happen in the US. Notice how atheists are ostracized in general in the United States. Name any politician in the US that's running on being an atheist and getting votes. Not the same. Sharia law prescribes death to anyone who leaves Islam. Threats of harassment and harm aren't the same as government execution. That's interesting. Turns out that's something you just made up. So you're saying that Sharia law is entirely about banking? That's what the article claims. That's not what it was claiming. Yes, it was used in context of financial status. Okay, even if you were to take Sharia, like even if you were to negate the Sharia law part, the point still stands. So I'm not going to question whether or not a group of people is brave. That's entirely going to be situational based on that individual. Are there, but people having it worse doesn't mean that these people aren't being brave. That's facetious as fuck. So this is absolute nonsense. Just complete nonsense. Da, da, da. Would you let your children attend a Christian youth camp if their friends invited them? Do they want to go? If the if my kid this person said no way, the cult who we're looking at, no way, I've been to those and they're horrible. I did get my first kiss at one though, laughing emoji. What? I don't know. If my kid wanted to go, I'd let my kid go. They're going with their friends. Go, have a good time. I don't care. That's fine. I would want to make sure that the people that are in positions of authority aren't abusers, but other than that, it'd be like going to any other camp. Whatever. Go, fine. Have fun. What are they going to have to do? Sing some Christian songs? Oh no. Yeah. Come on. Like as long as there's no abuse going on, I don't have a problem with it. I also don't have a problem if my kid wants to go to like the local church group. Right? Like if they want to go to the Friday night game thing at the open church with all the other kids their age, yeah, go for it. Have fun. Get out of here. Mom's gonna go have a glass of wine. It's not gonna, I don't have a problem with that. There's, I'm not. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. And maybe it's, again, it is very much possible, like the difference between being in Texas versus being in Southern Ontario. I'm not afraid of my local church groups. Why are you? Because maybe those are the things you should be addressing instead of whether or not there's a God in some of these definitions and making these blanket statements of morality. Maybe those would be some really good conversations to talk about. A common apologetic Christians offer for the existence of God is, if you can't see your brain, how do you know you have one? Atheists and agnostics, how would you rebut this? If you can't see your brain, how do you know you have one? If you can't see God, how do you know he exists or doesn't exist? You can see the effects of it. You can see your brain, just not with your eyeballs yet, kind of. There are ways to identify that something is there without having to physically see it there. The Higgs boson is a good example. We knew it existed for a long time before we were able to actually confirm, right? You can measure that the Earth is round without going into space, right? These are, I think it's an interesting, I'm sure there are plenty of allegories. You just liken it to something else and say, well, you can't see the wind. Does that mean the wind doesn't exist? There are lots of things that exist that you can't see, but there are ways to, and things that indicate that it's either there or not there. So she convinced me, I guess I have no brain, right? Like, sold. Can you, and there are certain things that you just need to, test out, all right? Oh, speaking of name calling, this pussy blocked me after calling homosexuals trash. Can't call him out for being a hateful bigot, but he can't block all LGBTQ and LGBT ally voices. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys a question because she was complaining earlier. Do you think this is a call out to go and harass this person? Yes or no? So 1 in the chat for yes, 2 in the chat for no. Can't block all LGBT and LGBT ally voices. Actually on Twitter, you can. All you need to do is go in and block specific words. And then you can also block people outside of that. Twitter is definitely one of those platforms, at least until, sorry, I knocked the microphone, at least until Elon Musk does whatever he decides to do with it. Currently, you can curate your experience very, very specifically. LOL, whatever says the people who promote child molestation to be legal for that's not, what the fuck kind of bonkers statement is this? Okay, so this is what the person had said, right? And I'm not defending what this person has said at all because this makes no sense. Like, I don't think they're calling just gay people trash. They seem to be calling people who think that gay people should be allowed to promote child molestation, which I don't know why they think this. I have no idea why they would think that that would be the case or who is promoting whatever they're saying it is. So this seems like way the fuck out of left field. Why would you encourage people to interact with this person? What? Smitty, the Bible only supports hetero child molestation. Right? Just in case you can't see it, here's the hateful tweet. Oh, this is the tweet. Okay, hold on. I thought this was the tweet. This one's the tweet. Maybe, I don't know. This is confusing. Hey heathens, shut up and stop um, indicating our kids. That's not indicating. No, it is indicating. Indicating. Yeah, I was right. Indicating. What? Hey, heathens, shut up and stop indicating our kids with all your false information and garbage. Sorry, but I'll do as commanded by God Almighty before I ever listen to a heathen, a pagan, and an unbeliever. You all think it's okay to follow demonic creatures with gender confusions. With gender confusions? Oh no. What? Okay. I puck. This person seems very. I think they meant indoctrinating. Yeah, I think you're correct. What in the fuck? Well, no, they're saying that demonic creatures have gender confusions. That means that Nikki is a demonic creature. What type of creature are you, Nikki? Or not, or maybe it just means like completely different. So it's either that Nikki is a gender. No, it is a gender. Nikki, you're a gender now. Congratulations. I now identify as a Nikki. What the fuck? Okay. The demonic creatures with gender confusions. So the demonic creatures are the ones that have the gender confusions. So it doesn't mean people who are confused about their gender in quotes are demons. This is the other way around. Hey Christians, please stop indoctrinating children again? Like, is this like atheists who used to be Christian can understand why this is harmful? Atheists who used to be Christians can understand why this is harmful. Indoctrination? What? There's so the thing is, here's what I find is the thing that bothers me a little bit. This is so confusing. Like some of these questions are really interesting and some of them just are rhetorical nonsense, right? Hey atheist, how do you know atheism is true? Are you asking about why do you believe atheism is true? Or are you asking about knowledge? Because you don't. You don't know atheism is true. It's simple as that. You don't know that. You can't know that. That is not information you have access to. So why do you believe atheism is true? Would be the question. Atheists have nothing to die for. We atheists have everything to live for. I mean, in some cases, sure. Depends on the person. Oh god, the Kalam. I'm not talking about the Kalam. I refuse. Christian practice symbolic cannibalism, and that's wild to me. There are a lot of Christians who are ignoring the word symbolic in my tweet. I mean, yeah, that's symbolic cannibalism, sure. I mean, a lot of people do stuff like that. There's like candied lips, there's like candied fish, there's like you can get candy of like anybody. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a candy that was like goo that came out of people's heads. Yeah, I don't think she's using a specific theory of knowledge, so it's just a colloquial no. I agree, but that's part of the problem that I'm getting at, right? If she's asking, how do you know that this is true? When you're asking about, it's important to when you're positing questions that you know the field of study in which you're positing the question. So the same thing as it's important to say, hey, is evolution a theory, or oh, is gravity a theory? Or it's important to know if I'm asking you by the term theory, do I mean musical theory? Do I mean scientific theory? Do I mean a colloquial generalization of an idea for a theory? So the same thing, if you're going to ask a question about knowledge or belief, you need to know that you're speaking in philosophy just to make it easier for everybody to understand what the hell you're trying to ask and what you're trying to say, right? Now, I'm not advocating that everybody specifically has to use specific language all the time, but what I'm saying is if you're trying to have a conversation about a field, then it's useful and valuable to learn a little bit about that field and know some of the terminology, if not all of it. Because I don't expect everybody to know the jargon for every single fucking field of study that there is, but you have to at least understand that you're in a field. So that way you can actually ask a question that makes sense and your question is actually able to get anywhere. This is what I mean. I get the feeling that a lot of these questions aren't really meant to be answered. They're just there to be thrown out there to be like, oh, I'm 14 and this is deep. I'm asking a really deep question here. And it really just doesn't feel like that. It really just doesn't feel like that. And there could be such an interesting, if you're so tied to this, I don't have a belief, I only lack a belief. And then you say, how do you know that atheism is true? What I'm getting at is you're crossing your streams. And I mean, any Christian who's taken any kind of theology class is going to be able to dunk all over you, by the way. Because if you do go to any kind of... I went to a Christian school for university. Now, I dropped out after 3 weeks because it wasn't for me. But I went to a Christian university. And you know what one of my first classes was? Philosophy. You have to take philosophy. And if you're going to... Now, I was going for a BA English, so it made sense that I was doing philosophy. But if you go into, let's say you want to become a youth pastor, or you want to be a pastor in a church, or you want to be like any kind of teacher in a church in Canada, maybe it's not the same in America. In Canada, there's schooling for that. And the schooling for that, you have to take theology, and you have to take Bible studies, and like historical Bible studies. These are all things that I went to university and to college, and I dropped out of both of them. These are things that are requirements. So because of these requirements, anybody who's taken any of these and actually like studied and learned it is going to be able to dunk on anybody asking this kind of a question, because your question is malformed. I still need a Patriot University degree. Yeah, I do. You're right. If you're a Christian who starting to doubt the validity of the religion, keep going, you're on the right track. Then ask questions about the religion. This is from October 25th. We've gone through October 25th all the way through now, and the questions that she's asking are not religion-based. They're God-based, or general moral statements. One of the best things that I think old school atheism did was old school atheism questioned the religious practices and what was going on with the religion, right? That way you had something malleable to pick at and tear apart. You don't have that when you're talking about whether or not a God exists, because there is no solid yes for sure and definitely, or no, definitely not. This is information that you don't have access to, and especially when the term for God could mean a large number of things. I can definitively say that, no, I don't believe the God of the Christian Bible exists. And I can say that with a high degree of certainty, because I can look at what is presented in that Christian Bible and I can apply it. And I can say, well, if the Christian God exists, this is not a good description of that God in particular. But now I'm talking about a particular God. I'm not talking about the God concept, which is a far more difficult thing to grasp because it can kind of be a little bit of anything. There are people who will say God is love. It's like, okay, well, fine. I can't work with that. Like, do I believe love exists? Sure. Do I mean that I think that I'm the kind of person who thinks magic exists, but my definition of the way I use magic is my own. Like, I don't believe I can go and cast a magic spell, but I think that there is an atmosphere around Halloween. And I think there's an atmosphere around Christmas. And I think other people caring about you enough to go out of their way to make food and have like a get together and buy gifts for you, I think that is magic. That is something that is tangible, it is there, it is something that you can affect in certain ways by doing certain things and by being able to interact. But somebody liking you and caring about you in any capacity is, to me, magical because you really don't have that much control over that. You can behave in the way you want and you can behave in a way that you might think that they want, but because you can't have that knowledge of that other person, there's like a degree of like just atmosphere and at the right moment and like that. I think that's magical. I don't think it's literal magic. Here's a good article on how to come out to your family as an atheist. Good luck. If that is something that you need to be concerned about, and then I wish you all the luck. And I hope it goes well for you because like that would be something. Deconversion and how to interact and get over some of the like anger a lot of atheists feel when they feel like they've been lied to or they're being told that they've been lied to, because I don't think there's a whole lot of atheist rhetoric that says, oh, Christians have been lying to you your whole life, your family's been lying to you your whole life. Are they? Have they been? I mean, you might feel that way, but have they actually been actively going out of their way to tell you something that they don't believe is true? So why are you going to traumatize people for no reason by saying that is the case, when for the most part that it's not? I think that extreme rhetoric can be harmful and is not effective in the most effective in the way that you would want it to be. The Bible is not evidence of the Christian God, just like the Quran is not evidence of the Muslim God. And the Bhagavad Gita is not evidence of the Hindu gods. Evidence outside of these sacred texts has to be provided for all these deities before existence can be verified. Incorrect. And this is the thing that I don't like, and I see atheists do this all the time. They pick and choose what counts as evidence without defining it. Whether you like it or not, someone's personal experience is evidence, and it might be convincing evidence to them. Should it be convincing evidence to you? Maybe, maybe not. That's up to you. You get to make that decision, right? You get to decide about how much weight you're going to put on someone's testimony, right? But it is evidence to be assessed, right? So the Bible is evidence. Is it good evidence for that particular God? I think it's great evidence against that particular God, but it still counts as evidence. I can absolutely use the Bible as evidence against the existence of God. Why couldn't I? So if I were to dismiss it entirely as not existing as evidence, I don't get to use it anymore. And I enjoy using the Christian Bible as evidence against Christianity. It's fun. I don't want to throw out the whole thing. Now, is it convincing evidence? Maybe, maybe not. That's up to you. You also can't deny personal spiritual experiences. Right, exactly. You don't get to pick and choose and just walk up to somebody and say, no, that didn't happen to you. You can say you don't believe them. You can say you're skeptical about what they're telling you, but that's their experience. You didn't have it. it might, again, what is convincing and what is evidence are two different things. You could say that the Bible is not convincing evidence of the Christian God. The Quran is not convincing evidence of the Muslim God, but it's still evidence. And so, the reason this bothers me is because it makes it difficult to make the argumentation when it comes to words like faith and words like theory and words like atheist and words like evidence if you're going to be wishy-washy. So pick. Are you going to be wishy-washy about the word evidence but not about the word theory? Why? Why do you get to do it but nobody else is allowed to? Somebody does it to you and you're like, oh, well, shit. Well, no, you don't get to. That's not how it works. But hey, maybe that's just me. I did like some of the stuff this person is positing. Christianity is based on the assumption that a deity created two people in a garden who offered said deity and who offended said deity and thus could not be absolved unless said deity incarnated as a human got beaten to death and then came back from the dead. This is clearly unrealistic and invalid. That's actually not quite correct. Now, that might be an issue of Twitter and like tweet length, but no, people could be absolved of sins before Jesus. There were sacrifices that were made. There's a whole. What do you think the Pharisees were? I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting off track. We'll stop there because this is we've gone through a lot. We've gone over a lot, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to pick on this person or anything. I just think these are interesting questions, which is why I brought this tweet thread up in particular. There's more interesting questions to be, or more interesting conversations to be had, but I find that the conversation just seems to keep getting stuck in this kind of a rhetorical paint the other group as a bad group of people. Right? And it's like, okay, I'm not going to say that shouldn't exist because I do think some of the bare bones questions, like the beginning questions, need to continuously be asked because there's continuously new people. And so because there's continuously new people, then it makes sense that there should be people asking those questions that we've gotten tired of. So I have no problem with things like that. I loved Pauligea's Ham and Eggs. I don't know if it's still going, but that was great. Dapper Dino's coverage of Kent Hovind, even though Kent Hovind is like complete garbage and there's not really any reason to deal with him in particular anymore, it doesn't mean that there aren't still new people who have discovered who Kent Hovind is. And so it makes sense that these things still continue. But there's got to be a place where these kinds of conversations actually we can get past like the first base. Can we get beyond first base and have some interesting conversations? Maybe, please, no longer having the conversation about atheism versus like agnosticism versus lack of belief atheist, and actually talk about like what definition is maybe instead of just arguing, having a conversation about what effectiveness do each one's have and when they're appropriate and applicable and when is better than the other to maybe use each one. Can we accept that having conversations about the existence of God and morals and religion is a conversation for philosophy? And because we're in philosophy, it makes sense to either learn some of the terminology or actually like have this conversation on a level that you're at least acknowledging what field of science you're talking about. Or like what field you're in. You're not going to have a conversation with a flat earther. At least the flat earther is going to fucking know that you're talking about physics and geometry. Like, for fuck's sakes. Like, come on. And so if you want to talk about like whether or not, I think it's more valuable for atheists to spend their time talking about whether or not religion is appropriate given certain contexts. So like, is the Catholic Church a force for good? Fantastic debate. Is Sharia law problematic here, and here? Why or why not? Is there something that we can do in like the Supreme Court in America having discussions and making decisions based off of Christian laws, because I think you find that a lot of Christians are also not okay with this. Should the church be taxed? Right? These are interesting debates about like, well, why or why should they not be? Do religious groups in America vote as a block? If they vote as a block, should they then be taxed? These are all interesting conversations. And if you want to start talking about like difficult moral quandaries about whether or not is it okay to steal, these are also interesting conversations, and you're going to have different answers. So you could bring on a Christian, bring on a Muslim, pick a religion and have a conversation with them and say, hey, is stealing okay? And then you can talk about, well, yes or no. And if they say no, you say, okay, well, why is that not okay? Well, God said it, you can't never stealing is wrong. And you say, so there's no situation where stealing would be all right. What if somebody is starving? Then would it be okay? What if you're stealing from Walmart? Fuck Walmart. Right? Do we need to protect Walmart from a starving child? These are interesting discussions to me. And then whether or not, talking about truth, right? Do you think there is only one truth, and can there be conflicting truths? This is interesting. That's a great question about whether or not is truth real, or is it even just a concept. I had a lovely conversation about free will with Answers and Reason. That was fantastic, and it was super duper fun, and we all got together and had a whole big conversation about, is free will a thing that even exists? And so go watch that. That was great. More conversations like that, please. Less conversations like this rhetorical nonsense of like just trying to get a gotcha dunk on people who don't. You're not changing anybody's mind. You're not helping. You're just repeating some nonsense. Is reality real? God. Never go full solipsism. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks so much for joining me. If you enjoyed the conversation, let me know. If you got questions in the chat or questions that you saw, send them to me. Let me know. I do have a pinned tweet right now. If you go and follow my Twitter, which is this one, that has my Discord tag in it. So, because I don't know what's gonna happen to Twitter. So if you want to find me in Discord, feel free to send me a friend request. I'm currently accepting all of the friend requests. As well, if you'd like to join in the Discord that I actually... Puck! Can you stop whining? I get it. I understand. You're fine. I don't know if you guys can see him. Ridiculous. If you'd like to support what I do here, consider becoming a Patreon or a member. You will get access to the Discord that does currently exist. We have a grand old time in there. I'm sure there'll be shenanigans in there later. And catch me over on Dapper Dino's channel later today. We're going to be talking about Ken Hovind. You going to say goodbye, Puck? Say goodbye, Puck. Goodbye, Puck. Have a good day, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.